Welcome back to the, I guess not official, but the Monmouth Basketball Hawks Nest podcast. Made it very clear over the weekend that someone else is the official, but that's okay. We're still rolling with our stuff over here. We've got a good show for you today. We got 4 or 5 games to cover. We got conference movement. We've got all kinds of drama with the fan base. We've got a winning streak after a 4-game losing streak. And we actually have a new guest on tonight. Mark was unable to come on tonight. He's got some basketball coaching stuff he's got to worry about, although I do also kind of think he's still in depression mode after his beloved Bills lost last night. I know last week I had my taste of the Cowboys' heartbreaking performance out for San Francisco, and now Mark is feeling the pain with Buffalo from last night in that crazy game. So, Mark, hope you're doing all right out there. But we do have another Monmouth fan on tonight, season ticket holder and former lacrosse player for Monmouth, and this is Mike Fideli on tonight. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller. I'm excited to be on the show with you today and talk some basketball.
You know, Mike's a knowledgeable guy. He, is always commenting on Facebook. Typically, I'm not on Facebook as much. I do once in a while, but I'm more on Twitter because I run the podcast for Twitter, where I get myself in trouble sometimes. But, Mike is always commenting on stuff, and definitely one of the top Monmouth fans out there, because not only did he go to the school, but he's a season ticket holder and really what you want in a younger fan base, because let's be honest, there's not that many younger people that are leaving the school and getting season tickets. So I hope more people like Mike and myself and Mark, and once you graduate, get season tickets and keep following the team. That's, the ultimate goal for us. So let's start it off. We had a long COVID break. We had 3 weeks off. And, I kind of said it on Twitter. I give a little foreshadowing. I said, we need to temper expectations as a fan base because it might get ugly this week. Like, you have 3 weeks off. And when you have COVID, it's not just you have a little cold and you shake it off. If you have more severe symptoms, your legs are fatigued. Your whole body is fatigued. Your lungs might hurt depending on which variant you got. So it's not as easy as I feel better today and I got to get back up. These guys haven't been conditioning besides maybe some workouts in their room. They're not shooting the basketball in the gym, getting up and down the floor. They're not in sync. So I did temper expectations a little bit, or I tried to. And, it showed versus St. Peter's, who was also coming off a long COVID pause of their own. And, in any year, we know St. Peter's is a difficult place to play. They play very physical. The Yanatelli Center, or I guess Run Baby Run Arena, that was new to me. That was kind of a shocker when I saw it on TV. I'm like, what did they call it? It's a difficult place to play. They did some renovations. It looks a lot nicer, but still not an easy place to play in the bubble there. And, Shaheen Holloway's team is going to play physical. They're going to elbow you. They're going to pull their stuff. And, that's not an easy game to work with coming off of COVID and trying to be physical with them. Listen, is Monmouth the better team? Yes, they are. They're absolutely more talented. They are the better team. But, St. Peter's kind of had them on the ropes. Monmouth was down really between 7 and 9 points most of the game. And they got it to 2 with under a minute to go. Shavar had a chance to make it a 1-point game, but he missed the second free throw, which led to St. Peter's hitting more free throws and then eventually icing the game. And, I know free throws are a big topic of conversation with this team right now because they were top 5 in the country a few weeks ago before the pause. And now they're typically shooting between 60 and 70% per game from the line. It's been a struggle, but I also said that to the folks on Twitter and Facebook. I said, listen, free throws, when your team is tired, when your legs are tired, when you got nothing left and you're gassed, you're going to miss free throws. And that's whether you're younger or high school or college or the pros, when you're tired, that's when guys start missing free throws. And, as frustrating as it is to watch out there, for a team that is a good free throw shooting team, that's why it's happening. It's not because they're getting lazy and they're not focusing. They're tired, guys. Like, they're exhausted coming off COVID and having all these games in a row. So that's why that kind of happened. Mike, any thoughts on kind of how the St. Peter's game went with that?
It was a tough game, right? They started out a little bit strong. I think they got out to a 5-0 lead, if I'm not mistaken. And then it kind of seemed like St. Peter's got on a little bit of a run, and you kind of thought that, all right, well, this may not be their day. We've seen instances where they've gone into Jersey City before and didn't quite have the energy at first, and they turn it around and they get right back going. And by the end of the game, it's maybe a 2 or 3 point win, and you sweat it out the whole time. And you say, glad we don't have to play there again for another 365 days. But as this game started to go on, it kind of seemed like maybe it wouldn't go like that. You thought, kind of like you said, there's a lot of the COVID pause implications that were that were hurting them. And by the end of the day, right, you look at the stats. I think they shot 70% from the line, and for a team that was in the top 10 in free throw shooting in the country, that's below what they normally do. But COVID's going to do that. The fact that they haven't been able to practice as a team is going to do that as well. So just it was a tough one. And St. Peter's, we know maybe they don't have the talent in the traditional sense, but they always make Monmouth work. I can't remember the last time I saw Monmouth blow out St. Peter's. They never do. It was a challenge. It was a challenge all night with Casey Nadefo in the post. He kind of seemed like he was having his way a little bit, which he does with a lot of big men in the MAC. I think we got Walker Miller, and he's been doing an awesome job for us so far this season, and it's great. It's great to watch him work down there, especially the last few games. But I think that was a game just a little bit of a perfect storm going against a big man like that who's been around and seen a lot of things in the MAC, and just very hard circumstance for him to get right there with a lot of things not necessarily lining up in Monmouth's favor. With that said, right, there was both teams coming off of a pause, right? There's St. Peter's, I think, was coming off of a maybe 27 game pause. We were 23, so both teams were coming off of a long layoff, which is both teams would show a little rust. And I think that explains why at the end of the day it was only a 5-point game. And I think under 30 seconds we had to look at a go ahead basket or a game time basket. So it was really a close game, but just didn't go our way.
Yeah, St. Peter's is tough no matter what. I remember a few years ago, I'm not sure if this is Justin Robinson time or kind of right before they got good, but I remember like a 44-40 game for St. Peter's. They just make the game ugly. They make it hard on you to play. And, they definitely dominated the paint. That's for sure. It's a good point there. They dominated the paint the whole night. It seemed like every other play in the first half was a backdoor cut. It was a dunk. It was an open layup. They just kept killing us in the paint. And, King Rice made adjustments. They figured it out in the second half. But, they got down by a little bit too much, and they just weren't able to overcome it and shoot themselves out of it. Pappas did have 16 points and 6 rebounds in the game. Shavar had 11 and 5 boards. And Foster had a pretty nice game. He had 10 points and 3 rebounds of his own. And we'll keep talking about Miles Foster because that dude just doesn't seem to miss any shots when he's in the paint. He's got such a nice touch around the basket. And he's not the most physical guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he just has a knack for putting the ball in the basket. And that's something Monmouth is definitely going to need down the stretch. Going into the Marist game, where we all got ourselves in a little bit of trouble. This was the second game off of COVID. I actually didn't get a chance to watch the game. It's very rare that if I'm not at the game, I'm not watching. I had a family birthday party. We had the Dallas game on, and after the heartbreak, I wound up seeing a couple messages from people on Twitter and my own text messages that Mom was getting blown out. And after the Dallas loss, I'm like, all right, I can't sit through 2 of these in one day. So I didn't even watch the game. Unfortunately, it's been 3 years I think since I didn't watch a game. But either way, it was a disaster. I mean, it was a disaster. It is what it is. It's probably their worst conference loss in the King Rice era. But, people got to understand. And I'm not getting at the fan base here. I'm not, going to King Rice it here. But, I think people piled on a little bit too much? Yeah, I do. I wasn't screaming, going crazy on them over this loss because I didn't expect a 36-point loss, but I did kind of expect us to not play a great game. Our first game versus St. Peter's, they were also on a pause. They were kind of in the same situation as us. It was going to be close, but I'm like, Marist is a good basketball team. They took Iona down to the wire twice, and they really should have beat them the first time. And, that's a good basketball team. And I'm like, there's a good chance we're going to lose this game by 12, 15 points. And I wouldn't be too upset about it because it's our second game in 3 days off the COVID pause. I kind of expected to lose this game, even by double digits. The 36 points just shows you these guys were gassed. And, we'll get to this weekend in a little bit, but, after showing what they did this weekend, it's clear as day now that it wasn't about losing focus. It wasn't about not being as good as Marist or getting embarrassed or giving up. This team was gassed. I mean, that's all it comes down to. This team was gassed. And of course, 36 points is embarrassing. It doesn't matter what the situation is, unless you're playing Kansas or UNC. It is embarrassing, but it happened for a reason, and a very specific reason. And I'll get this out of the way first before we get into the game a little bit. But I think I don't blame King Rice for being upset with people talking about it. You had that Steve Edelson article that kind of tore him apart a little bit. You had people on Facebook, you had people chirping a little bit. And listen, I'm not blaming the fans for chirping, because I think after a loss like that, it's normal for people to be upset. It's a normal human reaction. But I also don't blame King Rice completely for being upset about it. The problem is, it's not the first time. If this was the first or second time in 11 years that King went at the fans, it's a different story. I don't think I would have really thought anything of it. I'd be like, yeah, people are piling on too much. They're, too much right now. But when you've talked about the fans 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times over the years, get mad. We're talking about the large bit when they were good a couple years, getting mad at Josh Newman for promoting that stuff. Like, when you keep getting mad at the fans, it kind of gets drowned out and people don't want to listen to it anymore. So, that's my own take on it, my own opinion, because, this is an opinion, radio talk show type of thing. We're not spitting 100% facts and, gospel here. This is sports talk radio, basically. This is opinions and banter. That's what we do. But that's kind of my take on it. I don't blame King completely for being upset, but when it's your 7th, 8th, 9th time going at the fans over the years, it gets kind of old after a while. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, and I'm kind of leaving it there. But it was one of those games. We were down by, I think, 30 at the half, and it was just one of those nights. It was just a bad night. Now, the other thing is, I'll let you go in a second, Mike. He made a comment saying that one bad night in 11 years. And people want to jump on us. Well, listen, there's been a lot of success. You got to get King Rice a lot of credit for what's happened in Monmouth. But first bad night, I remember being a student losing to St. Francis Brooklyn right before Christmas by about 30 points. I remember some pretty terrible losses in there. So you can't say it's the first bad night in 11 years that you got blown out. But yes, it has been very limited over the years. But Mike, you watched the game, so talk to the fans a little bit for a couple minutes about kind of what you saw on the court, and then if you want to give your own take on King's comments or whatever else you want, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a classic game, I think, where you watch it and you kind of want to throw away the tape and never think about it again. But with that said, I do kind of want to go into a couple of things that I noticed when I was watching the game, just because I think it highlights what they've done well for the rest of the season with this game and this little losing streak notwithstanding, right? So one of the things I always comment on when I talk about teams playing defense is their ability to navigate high ball screens and their ability to pressure the 3-point line. Both of those things, and I think King Rice would agree with this, is they were non-existent in this game. And that's right. That does have a lot to do, probably everything to do with the fact that they hadn't been able to practice. And, you pile on the fact that St. Peter's beat them in a close game, a few days before. And, this was really the perfect storm of, you don't have your legs under you. You're playing a team, coached by John Dunn, who just gets after teams, right? This is his MO, is he holds teams to 48 points all the time. And, typically when that happens, they don't score 84 points. It's typically a rock fight. So it was, Marist was clicking on all cylinders in that game, and Monmouth didn't have it. And, sometimes it happens, not to the point where you're losing by 46 points in a conference game, and I think, and Coach did, to be fair to Coach Rice, he did mention in his post-game comments that, they didn't look good, and there was not much to write home about their effort and about about the result that they put on the floor. But I mean, the context is important, right? Kind of like you said about tempering the expectations of what we would see on the floor. But I do mention, right, their defense in terms of navigating those high ball screens and guarding the three and really being active on the defensive end, because when they don't have it and they play against a very good team, this could be what happens, especially on a long layoff. But eventually they get back to what you've seen earlier in the season, and you will have more success by being more defensively sound and adhering to those defensive principles that King Rice has made a staple of this program in his 11 years here. And just to briefly touch on the kind of the expectation setting and everything like that is, it's always a good thing when people are dialed into the program, right? When people make it appointment viewing to make sure that they're watching Monmouth basketball and they're dialed in, and right, they're having expectations, I think, that are commensurate with the success that King Rice and his team have put on the court. And I think that's important, right? We're not sitting here saying, why isn't this team going to the Final Four, right? I think we're saying, we want them to be competing hard in MAC games. And I think, with a little bit of, with the gift of a week now from this game, I think we see that this was merely a fluke. But I think at the time when we're watching a game like this, we're saying, oh boy, like, we better they better get this together, because no one's going to feel sorry for them for having this layoff. And I don't want to segue too much, Ryan, but I think we learned in the games that came after this that maybe this was, after all, just a game where you throw away the tape. It's one MAC game out of 20, and you move on.
Yeah, I do want to just say one more thing regarding the Facebook and Twitter comments, stuff like that. And I don't remember if I talked about it in the last podcast or not, but the whole thing is, and I know King wants to keep things close to the vest, and he's doing this podcast now and trying to be more open about certain things. And okay, that's cool. But the thing is, when you have a good fan base or a decent fan base, people talk. Like, if the second people stop talking about your team, you're irrelevant and you've lost your fan base. So it's one of those things you really can't have it both ways. You can't. And I tweeted out a big. If you want to check out my podcast Twitter, I tweeted out a 14 tweet novel kind of on my take about the whole thing. And I didn't know if King was coming at us, because I really didn't say anything about it. Mark might have said something, I don't know. But I don't know if he was coming at us or just the whole fan base in general. But the bottom line is, when you have expectations and you have a fan base that is engaged and showing up to games, people are going to talk. And you can't have it both ways, because King said the first day he talked to the fans, I was a freshman King's first year, and he said to us, we're not going to come into this arena and sit on our hands and just watch the game. Like, we're going to be up, we're going to be yelling, we're going to be screaming. Well, if you want the fans to come and you want a packed house, guess what? When you lose or when things go bad, people are going to talk about it. When you're getting an at-large bid,
Yeah.
people are going to talk about it. Like, that's the nature of the beast. Like, and again, I'm not saying you can't ever defend your team, but you also can't scapegoat the fans every time something goes wrong. So, that's part of the issue. And, I don't know, again, that doesn't get resolved. Like, I'm just telling you right now, King is who he is. He's a good guy. I've met him before. I've talked to him a few times. He's a good guy. He is. And he's a good basketball coach. But, that's who he is. He has a chip on his shoulder. It seems like he's, paranoid about what people are saying sometimes. And it is what it is. That's who he is. He's going to handle it that way. But the problem is, I don't want to see him lose his fans, because people pay, their hard-earned money to go to the games, to watch the games, and we're coming to watch you at your job. And it is entertainment. It is a business. As much as it is education, we know Division I basketball is a business, and it's not, TC&J or Montclair. All the respect in the world to those players. They're, Division III athletes are still great athletes, but Division I's a different kind of beast. So, I know you want to get a comment in here. So, that's kind of my take on the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think Ryan, you kind of led to a good point, which is that, when one of the great things about playing sports at this level, at the Division I level, is that people do care, right?
Yes.
You really realize how much people invest in these programs, whether it's the athletes themselves, whether it is people who donate facilities and donate money to make the programs operate. People care, and it's a beautiful thing because they want to see you do well, and they want to be invested in your success. And with that, sometimes comes a little bit of making sure that people are dialed into your program, whether it's good or bad. I'll tell kind of a brief story about myself, right? I like Ryan said, I played lacrosse for Monmouth, and when I was a senior was our first year at the Division I level, and we had expectations for ourselves, right? We had a pretty good recruiting class. We came in and we said, we're gonna compete in the Northeast Conference, and we're gonna win games, and we're gonna try to get ourselves in position to maybe do something late in the season. And we encouraged people to come out. We told people, bring your friends, bring anybody who you want to bring, and come watch us play lacrosse. It's a new sport at the Division I level at this university, and we were really excited about that. And the unfortunate thing was we struggled. We lost a lot of games. We expected people to be there, and when we would follow up with those people, and they would say, oh, we were at the game, what happened? They expected a response. They expected accountability from me for telling them to come out and give them 3 hours of their time, and to give them a reason to continue to come back out, right? It's like telling a story. This is in some ways no different than a Netflix show, and you're kind of the star of the show, which is that, right? Like you're telling a show for people to come and continue to watch, whether it's you're in the infancy of building a program and you're saying, all right, we're going to have the pieces in place to eventually be really competitive, and we're going to be good, and we're going to knock off one of these ranked teams here, or whether it's King Rice in his 11th season at the helm of Monmouth, where the narrative is we've been able to make a real splash and make a name for Monmouth University in the college basketball world, and we're chasing down getting to the first NCAA tournament since 2006, right? This is all part of the narrative, and this is all part of selling your program so that the rest of the community can be part of it. And it's really this whole athletic department and what we do at Monmouth University it is special for the campus, and it's special for the people that are involved, and it has the potential to be even more special, and something that is really a staple in Monmouth and Ocean County, where people know Monmouth basketball and know how they're doing, whether they're basketball fans or not. And you can really be something that is part of the fabric of life here at the Jersey Shore. And I think that's something that we all want, and that's something that we all want to get to, and we want to see the basketball team continue to take those steps and continue to grow its profile, so that we can all continue to enjoy it. I think in the last probably 6 years since the Justin Robinson years, I think you and I, Ryan, have been, we look around the arena sometimes when we're in there, and we've had decent teams. Maybe they weren't of the winning stature of those old teams, but we had better teams than having only 2,000 people in the arena, and there's an arena with 5,000 capacity, right? We can be a team, a program that has regularly 4,000, 4,500 people showing up, whether we're 500, 600, 700, 900 basketball, right? We can be a university like that. And I think you and I see that. I think the core fans see that, and we just want to see that continue to grow.
I mean, you're right on 100% of that. The thing for me is, and people have called Monmouth a sleeping giant, Ross Steen and different guys on Twitter, they keep calling Monmouth a sleeping giant. Well, typically the stands are pretty full at most of the game. Not completely, but pretty full. Over time, and you and I have spoken about this so many times, we've got to get more students into that section. We need to get some organized chants, which you and I have talked about, and we'll get into that another time. But, imagine that arena getting that loud like it did against Iona in a couple of the games recently.
Absolutely.
The student section, I want to say they were track guys. I think I saw on Twitter the track team came out and they were making all kinds of noise and chaos versus Manhattan the other day and a little bit versus Iona. We need that. We need those students to go back to their teams, their dorms, their fraternities and sororities. Like, we need people at these home games. And listen, there's only 10 conference home games a year. Like, there's not that many dates in the calendar where you got to show up. But I mean, imagine getting 300, 400, 500 students into that section and getting that loud. I mean, it would be a really hard place to play. And, you think about a school like Quinnipiac and Canisius and Niagara that just don't draw anybody. And Quinnipiac's been good over the years, but they play in the hockey arena and you just see blue seats the whole way around. So, you see a team like Monmouth that has that potential with the beautiful stadium it has to put more students in those stands and make more noise and get more organized. It is a sleeping giant, and we're more than ready for it to wake up because, we've had times where it's been packed, but those times were kind of far and few between besides a couple of years. So I'm hoping those guys can bring some more people back next time and, keep the momentum going a little bit there. But, there wasn't much to say about the box score on this one. I mean, we shot 28% from the field. That's really all there is to say about this game. Again, like you said, it's one, you watch tape, move on, and you never look back at it. Going into Iona, this was a huge game because now they were 2-2 in the conference. They wanted to keep themselves above 500. Monmouth came out and played as good of a game as you could have possibly expected. Third game in 5 days. A lot of people did not expect them to be in this game. And truthfully, I didn't either. Did I think we would play okay? We would play maybe a very competitive first half and maybe run out of gas at the end. That's kind of what I expected. And I'm guilty of this too. I didn't think they were going to get crushed, but I did not think they were going to be in this game into the final seconds and getting into overtime. They proved every single person wrong because no one on either side or even someone neutral thought Monmouth would be this close in this game. The biggest lead Iona had was 61-51. They got to 10. And then Shavar just lost it in the second half. He went on a tear to get him back in the game. Walker hits, fast forward to get into the game, Walker hits a jumper with about 1:30 to go. Monmouth takes the lead. You're like, oh my God, we might win this game. And Elijah Joyner, that SOB, hits a crushing three-pointer with 9 seconds to go, takes the lead. Shavar gets fouled with 2 seconds left on the clock, makes 2 clutch free throws, which, listen, Shavar could have made it a little easier on us. He hit every friggin' part of the rim on both of those foul shots. So we had to be on the edge of our seat for each one instead of just, hitting the bottom of the net. So Shavar scared us a little bit there, but he did make both of them. 2 very clutch free throws for him after struggling a little bit the last couple of weeks. So we go to overtime. And Clary makes a jumper, gets the deficit from 3-1 with about a minute and a half to go. He hits another jumper after a couple of Iona free throws, and Monmouth is down 1 with 7 seconds to go. Shavar takes the ball. He dribbles up the court to the right side. He starts cutting across to the left, and you see in the replay, the guy was sneaky enough where he got his hands off of him, and it looked like he didn't do anything. It was a clear as day bump right in front of the referee. Like, clear as day, bumped him, pushed Shavar off of his track. It was clear-cut foul. And for whatever reason, after calling fouls the whole day, the refs decided to choke their whistle. I don't know if it was a Patino effect or whatever it was, but the guy is standing right there. He saw what happened, lets it go. The ball, stumbles out of his hands. Ruddy, hoists up a 12, 14-footer. He gets fouled. They choke the whistle again, and Monmouth loses by 1 point in overtime. I think it was 86-85. And it was crushing. I don't think, Nicole, my wife, we go to all the games together, and I don't think I've been that heated over a game probably since the Nico Clarith game. I can't remember just having that bad taste in my mouth quite as much as that game. I was losing my mind on the officials as they were walking up. I couldn't even control myself at that point. But it was just clear as day. And it was just such a disappointing ending because they just played their asses off. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like, they played their asses off, and I thought they really deserved to get rewarded and sent Shavar to the line to at least try to win the game. But unfortunately, the refs thought differently, and they got a loss. But I don't think any Monmouth fan can be disappointed in the way they played that game.
No, not at all. I mean, that was absolutely a foul. To your point, that was a foul. You can see him through the key. He's changing direction, and he inexplicably falls. One of I think the lost parts of that is Nikkei Ruddy getting the scramble look off of that. If you look at it, he gets the shot off in time.
Yeah.
The loose ball that came off of that would have been fouled, but so that would have also been something if that went in and Monmouth wins the game like that. But this was a weird game in a lot of ways. I think for Monmouth Iona games, especially one that ended up in the 80s, it felt kind of slow, which is really funny because typically Monmouth Iona is these fast-paced games. Felt like there were a lot of stoppages, a lot of timeouts. This was an extremely well coached game. You look at the box score and see you got three guys with 20 plus points: Walker Miller, George Pappas, and Shavar Reynolds. It was a great college basketball game. I think with what we've been saying about coming off of the COVID pause, I think that's a lot of what we saw with the free throw percentage. I think they shot 63% from the line, and they'll get their leg back. The shame in it is that had they made those free throws, maybe this would have been a different outcome. But I mean, you can't play analytics with this, right? Part of not shooting free throws well is that you also have to defend and play, right? It's not just a matter of saying, oh well, if they would have scored more points, they would have won. So you have to take that in mind that your opponent has a lot to do with that. Rick Pitino makes teams work, and it's been great. It's been great having him in this conference. I know when Iona hired him last year, or 2 years ago, I guess it was. There's a lot of the sky is falling kind of reactions about Rick Pitino joining the MAC, and it's been a great thing for the league. For Monmouth being in the league so far for 2 years, where he's been here, this will be year number 2. It's having a good effect. We'll see how the rest of this year plays out, but you have a team that has potential to give a run at 2017 Monmouth's MAC record 18-2 conference mark. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue to go, but they're becoming a can't miss team at the mid-major level. You see a lot of the mid-major national outlets are having a lot of positive things to say about them, and deservedly so. But this game was a great game. Even just catching up on Twitter after the game and just seeing some of the reactions, and how pumped up the Iona fans were to come out of West Long Branch with a win. Said a lot about where Monmouth's program is and their ability to continue playing. And as we get more games past this COVID pause, I think we're getting a lot better context for the effect that it's had on this team. Because even so, right, it was game number 3 off of the pause, and you saw even not having it all, they were a bounce here or there and a bad non-foul call away from giving Iona their first MAC loss of the season, and possibly of the entire MAC season. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you and I have a very different view on the Patino thing. You and I, that's the one thing okay. You and I have not seen eye to eye on, because I've told the story before, but I'm telling you, I'm sitting there remote teaching from home. I was off for that period, I guess, and I'm sitting there in April 2020. And I'm checking emails, and I'm looking at my computer for work, and I hear on ESPN in the background, the Iona Gales have hired their new head coach. It's Rick Pitino. And I'm like, did they just say what I think they said? Like, did they really just say that? Or did they have the same Iona we're talking about here? I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. We're never gonna win. So, part of me agrees. Like, it has been a good thing for the MAC, but I'm also not too sad to be leaving for that reason, because not only is he going to get the recruits, but as we've seen, he's going to get the calls. And listen, you can call that sour grapes, you can call that whatever you want. Rick Pitino is going to get calls in the MAC conference. I mean, when you get to AC, I mean, just wait. Like, you're going to see the kind of calls he gets. He's a Hall of Fame coach. It is what it is. It's like Coach K going against a rookie coach at, Pitt or, lower ACC school. Like, he's just going to get those calls. Like, it is what it is. So
definitely, it's been fun having him in the MAC so far. And I think one of the funny things you mentioned about, him joining the MAC and everything like that. If you look a few years ago at when Siena fired Jimmy Patsos and they first hired Jamie and Christensen to replace him, there was a lot of chatter and in Siena Twitter about Rick Pitino coming to be the coach at Siena, and I think a lot of us looked at that and were like, I don't think Rick Pitino is coming to coach Siena. And if only we knew then that it wouldn't be Siena that he'd be coming to coach, it would be Iona, but he would still be coming to the MAC. I don't think any of us had that in the back of our minds.
Siena didn't get Pitino, but you know what they do have? They got that regular season banner flying in that gym. Regular season banner, fly it high.
The 2020 MAC tournament champions.
Nice job, guys. Way to go, Siena. Terrible fan base. Awful. All right, so Walker had 22 and 7 in this game. Unreal game for him. He was all over the place. George Pappas, 21 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 3 steals. He's one of the top assist men in the conference now. So he's just walking into the very top of the discussion for player of the year because he is doing everything right now for this team. Shavar had 21 points of his own. Miles Foster, another productive game, 6 points, 6 boards, 4 blocks in the game. Right? He's 6'7", but to me, he's a smaller 6'7". 4 blocks for a guy like that is extremely impressive, and we know what he can do on offense. But this year, Miles Foster's defense has taken a huge step up, and it's a huge piece for this team right now. Moving on, we're gonna go a little quicker for these next couple games because we got to get to the end here. Monmouth Fairfield, this was a game they had to have because you do not want to fall 2 games under 500 in the conference. Fairfield is a solid team. They've underperformed a little bit so far, but they are a solid basketball team that is scrappy. They hit threes, and it's a game Monmouth had to have, and they got it. It was a revenge game from last year for knocking us out in the quarterfinals in AC, a huge 7-2 upset. And you saw on the press, Pappas said to his guys, listen, remember what they did to us last year. We cannot go home with a loss today. And George and them did what they had to do. They made it kind of an uglier, slow-down defensive game. But, they got a huge win over Fairfield on the road to get right and get back in the win column. Walker had 11.6 boards. Pappas was 16 of his own, another 4 assists for him. Shavar with 10 points in double digits. And we finally got a Jarvis Vaughn sighting, banged a 3 a couple minutes after he got to the court. And, we'll get to him more later, but he is looking really strong for this team right now. It is huge having him out there. We've been waiting for it all year. And then Chapu and Miles Ruth, 3 steals each. We're going to get to that in a minute, but with the way this team is clicking right now and all these extra options coming up, you're not just looking at George and Shavar and Walker anymore. I mean, McClary's playing out of his mind. Now you got Sam and Miles Ruth and Foster and Vaughn. I mean, everything is clicking right now, and this team has suddenly gotten very deep, and they're going to be a real problem in the MAC the rest of the way. So, Mike, if you want to hit on anything else with this Fairfield game before we move on.
Yeah, it was just great to see Jarvis Vaughn out there playing, right? He's, like we said, he struggled so much with injuries and getting on the court. I think the team has mentioned that, he's been a real presence for them, in practice and in the locker room, and a guy that's really important to have on the team. And we're seeing what he can be. Hopefully he's got a lot of eligibility left, but it's going to be nice to see him for the rest of the season as a compliment to Nikkei Ruddy in the post. And seeing him play alongside Walker Miller really get after it in the paint against the rest of the MAC, who there's good big men around the MAC, but I think as we've seen, if you can establish a post presence with these guys, that's something that can make a huge difference.
So going on to the Manhattan game, our final game of the night, just yesterday, this is a true team win and a statement win. Everybody had it going in this game. We'll start with Walker Miller, the leader, with 19 points in the game. He was a beast down low, hitting threes. Pappas had 10 points. Quieter night for him, but he did have 7 rebounds and 4 assists. Hit a couple bomb threes. I mean, one was, probably a few feet in front of half court. Just let it fly. Shavar was scoreless in the first half, but second half, once he hit that first three, you kind of saw the look on his face, get that nice, deep breath, like, all right, exhale, I can go now. And he was pretty dominant after that. Had another 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in the game. 2 guys we got to highlight. Marcus McClary, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He really set Monmouth on fire in this game. He was hitting He had a couple threes in a row from right in front of the Manhattan bench. You saw in a picture, Maciel and his goons on the bench yelling at him, as he shot the three. Typical, no class Manhattan. But McClary, driving to the basket, throwing dunks down, making ridiculous moves in the paint. He did a little bit of everything in this game. And, as the fourth option really on this team, Marcus has just become such a solid MAC player. And when he's clicking and you got to go guard him, that opens up so much for the other guys. It opens up Walker underneath and Pappas for threes and Shavar to do his thing. You get Ruddy open dunks like you saw in this game. We'll get to him in a second. Marcus, what he's doing is just extraordinary, and it's so important to the fabric of this team right now. And they would not be where they are without him. He's had some huge games, and it seems like every time he has kind of a little bit of a struggle, such as the St. John's game where I called him out. He had a really brutal first half. He lit it on fire in the second half. Same thing. He has a couple tough nights. He's not in the box score. He's only playing defense. He's not really getting points up. He has a monster game. That's just what Marcus is doing this year, and it's not going unnoticed. And then finally, Nikkei Ruddy, a monster game, throwing dunks down left and right, couple of tip slams. It was probably the best game of his career thus far. And it came at a great time. 10 points, 15 rebounds. I think they said it was the most in the King Rice era for a player. Him and Marcus, their hair was on fire. They were like 2 men on a mission that even if our guys weren't going to shoot the ball great tonight, we are going to figure out however we can to win this game. And the 2 of them had absolute career games, and it was fun to watch the 2 of them out there.
Really was. Nikkei Ruddy with a double-double. That was 3 huge dunks, 3 tear the house down dunks. 2 of them on the first 2 plays of the game. He was everywhere. And like you said, with Marcus McClary, I think one of the underrated plays, just to jump back a couple of games from the Iona game, was the crossover he put on. I think it was Joyner, one of their guards, where he sent him flying through the key. They called it offensive foul, which was, one of those calls that was not great throughout the rest of the game. But it was one of those moments where you heard the crowd gasp. And Marcus McClary gives you those kind of plays, from time to time. And he's a player. He can do so many different things. And we've seen how much his skill set has developed over his 5 years, on campus. And, a game like this where you could see both guys whose effort and intensity adds so much to everything that Monmouth wants to do. It was great to see. It was great to get a big win over a school like Manhattan, which when we first joined the league, they like to really get after us. And I think, during the Justin Robinson years was the first time we ever beat them. So really to let Manhattan have it was really nice. And I think this was the type of game where we're really, and this is the theme, right? I think we're really starting to see Monmouth get back to what they were in the beginning of the season, where they were beating Cincinnati and beating Pitt, beating St. Joe's, and they can be a wagon. This team can be really good, and I'm hopeful. I think everybody else is hopeful that this is going to be a team that's going to continue to improve.
All right, so we are moving on now to our last segment of the show. We are transferring to the Colonial Athletic Association.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, huge move. So I think a sophomore or a junior when we went from the NEC to the MAC. I'm like, wow, that's a huge change. And I'm like, who are all these teams now? You're used to playing Mount St. Mary's and Wagner, and now you're playing Manhattan and Iona and all these other teams. And Quinnipiac comes with us. And it was a weird time when that originally started. And now we finally get comfortable on the MAC and having some success, and we move up to the Colonial, which a lot of people are saying is more of a football move because, Monmouth has been kind of stuck in the Big South due to leaving the NEC. The NEC did not allow us to have membership and kicked us out. So we had to find a home, which was the Big South, and Monmouth had a ton of success there over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And now they are finally getting all their sports in the Colonial in one conference. And, I have very mixed feelings on the move. I'm gonna definitely miss the Ryder game. I hope that if King Rice stays at Monmouth and Kevin Baggett is at Ryder, I do hope they continue that series. I know they're friends, so you hope they continue that kind of series. You miss the St. Peter's and certain other home games. You're gonna miss the Iona rivalry. I will not miss the Siena fans. I will not miss them at all on Twitter. Half of them are blocked on my account anyway. I will miss them that conference. It's an interesting conference, the Colonial. It's definitely a step up for pretty much all sports. So, looking at their conference, you go. I'm going to go top down from their basketball standings right now. UNC Wilmington, then North Carolina. You have University of Delaware. You have Towson, who we've played a lot. You have Hofstra, who we play every year. So there are some familiar teams in here. James Madison is leaving the conference, so they're no longer in it. Drexel, we've played plenty of times. William and Mary in Virginia. You have Elon, College of Charleston, Northeastern, and they're also going to add Hampton as well as Stony Brook, which is also Long Island. So, part of the thing is, the road games, who wants to drive to Long Island ever, let alone, on a weekend where they're going to hit 3 hours of traffic. That's kind of a rough one with Hofstra and Stony Brook. We'll still get to some games and people will still go, but it's not as convenient as, flying down 195 to Ryder. You get Drexel and Philly, which isn't, a bad train ride or not a terrible drive down. You just have a lot of farther road games that aren't as manageable to get to. And it's a brand new conference. It's more, if the MAC is between 20 and 23 every year in the conference rankings, Colonial is closer to like 14 to 18, 19 from what I've seen. So it is definitely a significant step up, but I don't think it's one where Monmouth fans need to worry about the level of competition because we've played these guys. Like we've played Towson and we've had success against Towson. We've played Hofstra and we've played them very well, even though we've lost the last few. We play Hofstra well every time. Drexel, we typically beat them pretty good. So we've played these teams before, and it's not like we've been blown out by anybody. So with basketball, I do think if we keep recruiting at this level, that we're going to be just fine. I'm not worried about where we'll be in basketball. I know UNC Wilmington's kind of been the hot team the last few years, but, Towson's the third best team in that conference, and we beat them earlier this year. So, I do think it has potential to be a really, really good thing for the university. Again, very mixed feelings about it, but I do think it could be a good thing for the college.
Totally. And Ryan, I think this is one of those things where you and I differ a little bit. I am very bullish on this move to the CAA. I think, I am a Monmouth football and basketball fan. So I mean, I understand it kind of seeming like a football move, but with that said, I think there's a lot of value in having a conference where you play both sports, right? So I think there are 7 schools where that play CAA football and basketball together. So that has a lot of value when you're trying to engage, the university and the community, students, fans, locals, and say, oh, who are we playing this weekend? Oh, we're playing Stony Brook, as opposed to, oh, well, in football we play Campbell, and in basketball we play Manhattan. Right.
Right.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get people to kind of understand where you play, where your school is in terms of the teams it competes against. They're, the schools that are in the league are also they're very good schools. If you look at them academically and their academic profile, it's nice to have the two schools that you're closest to be the University of Delaware and Drexel, right? UDEL is an endowment in the billions, and it's a very reputable school. It's exciting to be playing a lot of those guys, and even for football and basketball, it's one thing. For our women's basketball program, it's going to be huge. They're the 11th ranked conference in women's
Yep.
basketball. For lacrosse, they're regularly a two-bid league. This is something I think top to bottom you're going to see a lot of improvements for Monmouth University, just in terms of the profile of the school, the type of schools that Monmouth is compared to. And President Leahy mentions this all the time, that using the athletics and Monmouth sports as a way to promote Monmouth University, and have teams mentioned in the same sentence, right? When these schools go up against each other, they become peer schools, whether they like it or not. So this is something that is gonna really help Monmouth University. I think it's gonna help us continue to grow, and take these next steps that even I was mentioning earlier, that allowing Monmouth sports to be something that around here is really can be a big deal. And I think I'm excited about it. I'm excited to play schools like Villanova and Richmond and Delaware in football. I'm excited to be in a conference that is still pretty geographically tight. I mean, to be fair, the MAC, which was very good for us, is actually the tightest conference in Division I in terms of geography, which kind of makes sense. But the CAA is not it's not like we're in the old American Athletic Conference that went from coast to coast, right? It still spans from Maine to North Carolina, but a lot of schools in between, a lot of drivable schools. I'm really excited about it. The only thing, and I think we've mentioned this when we've spoken, even seen some stuff on social media, is what happens with ESPN. As you know, the CAA has an agreement with Flow Sports. I'm optimistic something will work itself out. I trust the university leadership. They've put a lot of money into our broadcasting school, and it's done extremely well for our alumni, and it's something that we're all really proud of. So I'm sure we'll learn more about that this week. I'm really excited for the university. I'm excited for the athletes who will get to compete in the CAA, and get to reap the benefits of this, right? Even from a basketball standpoint, just to go back to that, is right. The CAA is regularly what, a 12 or 13 in
Yeah.
the season.
Right.
Yeah, you get the automatic bid, and you're in one of those games that people pick on the bracket when they're filling out the bracket and say, oh, Monmouth's playing Ohio State. Yeah, why not?
Right. Right.
So
And you know what? The other thing is, they're not small schools in this conference. Delaware is a big school. Towson's a big school. And even academically, it raises the profile of Monmouth now, because Delaware is a very good university. Not to say that Monmouth isn't, but Monmouth is kind of, in my opinion, based on Forbes rankings and things like that, it's kind of a middle of the pack, on the upswing academic school. And you look at the schools in this conference, Northeastern is an outstanding school. Drexel is a borderline Ivy League school. Towson's a really good school. UDEL, like, there's some really, really good academic schools. So not only on the sports side, being in that conference may raise the profile of the type of students that come to Monmouth in terms of GPA, and growing the school in that aspect, and that adds a whole nother layer to the success of your university. So, like you said, there's a lot of good things to look at here. And overall, I do think it is going to be a good move. There are certain things I will miss about the MAC, and certain things I will not miss at all. I wonder if the referees will change it all in the Colonial. It's one of those things, but overall, I do think it will be a positive thing for the university, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the seasons go starting next year. So Mike, any last words before we sign off here?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I just want to reiterate, right? I am such a proud Monmouth alumni, right? Everyone who knows me knows that, the sports that I love the most and talk about the most are Monmouth football and basketball and lacrosse when people want to talk lacrosse. But I am so dialed into Monmouth sports. I'm at every game I could be at. Those are my teams. I love being at the games. I love being back on campus. The experience I had, as a student athlete, and even as a student as well, right? One of the fun facts that I'm sure the listeners would appreciate is, Ryan, I was your RA back in the day when
Yeah,
we were on campus, and you're right, I was an RA there too, and just everything that Monmouth University has to offer is awesome, and it's been being a Monmouth alumni and at the time a Monmouth student was really a transformational time in my life. I learned so much and I got so many opportunities that set the course for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. And I couldn't be more grateful to everybody at Monmouth University who made that possible. And I think that being a dialed in alumni and a fan and donor when we can is something that it's paying it forward. It's everybody who helped you out when you were in school, who took the time to work with you when maybe they didn't have the time. It's paying it forward, and it's making sure that the next generation of Monmouth people and Monmouth students, Monmouth athletes, and everybody else who benefits from it is able to get that same experience and really value Monmouth University and take a lot away from it and give a lot back to it themselves. So that's just something I wanted to reiterate. Love Monmouth University, proud alumni. Would recommend it to anybody. Loved my experience.
All right, Mike. Really appreciate you coming on tonight and filling in for Mark. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely got to have you back on soon, and maybe come MAC tournament time, or if Mark's got another game, I'll bring you back on and we'll do this again.
Sounds like a plan, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
All right, don't sign off yet. I'm gonna get these guys out of here. Just want to thank everybody for always listening to us. Again, like I've said before, we're not going to discourage anybody from listening to other podcasts or other shows. You listen to whatever you want to listen to. We're going to be here doing our thing. And we just appreciate all the Monmouth fans out there, the true fans that are always dialed in, not just when teams winning, always dialed in no matter what. We appreciate all you guys. You guys are the true fans. And we're looking forward to another great 13 MAC games plus another 3 in the tournament and playing Saturday night in Atlantic City, hopefully hosting that trophy in a couple of months. All right.
Let's
Thanks
do
everybody
it.
for listening. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.